Hi, I'm Victor Yates.
And I'm Antonio Garcia.
And you're watching Culture News. That's culture with a Q.
First story I'd like to talk to you guys about today is the latest round for same-sex marriage in the United States. Last Friday, gay and lesbian couples rushed to file petitions with the U.S. Supreme Court to settle the gay marriage issue once and for all. This latest action came after the U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled last week to uphold the gay marriage bans in Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, and Tennessee. On October 6th, the U.S. Supreme Court surprised most observers by turning down petitions seeking to appeal rulings that struck down gay marriage bans in the states of Indiana, Oklahoma, Utah, Virginia, and Wisconsin, thereby effectively increasing the list of states where same-sex marriage is legal to 33. The Supreme Court is now expected to finally take on the issue whether gays and lesbians have a constitutional right to marry, and a groundbreaking same-sex marriage ruling is expected June of next year.
Well, two things I want to talk about. One, we just had election day, and the Republican took over a huge percentage of Congress. And so, which is important for people to go out and vote. Typically, the presidential elections tend to get the most amount of people going out to vote. And so, which is important for people who are LGBT. If you want to be represented, you have to go out and vote for people who are interested in furthering our rights. And it's amazing. It's great to hear that 33 states, it's legally allowed for gays and lesbians to marry, and I can't wait to see what is going to happen next June.
Yeah, it's actually allowed in 33 states, and it's also allowed in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I believe that it's when it happens, we're going to erupt in celebrations. I know when Prop 8 was struck down in California, yeah, we went crazy over here. So,
you thought that the rulings would go how? You said a 5-4 vote?
Yeah, I think that the way the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled recently, especially with California's Proposition 8 and striking down the Defense of Marriage Act last year, I think that this matter finally needs to head to the Supreme Court. They need to settle it once and for all, because this is our civil rights movement of our generation, of our time. Same-sex marriage is the civil rights movement in our country during this time. I mean, they need to settle it once and for all. So I think that after they hear all the arguments, I believe that in June the court will rule in a 5-4 ruling, so it's going to split the court in half amongst the progressives and the conservatives. But I believe the swing vote is going to come by Justice Kennedy, and he tends to be more moderate in the courts, and I believe he's going to side with the liberals on the court, and in a 5-4 ruling, same-sex marriage will be legal in the United States. Okay. That's what I feel is going to happen.
And also, this is why it's important to vote. In the past election, there was a dramatically less amount of people that came out to vote. Typically, people tend to vote more during the presidential elections because there's a lot more media campaigns out there to get people to vote. But we found out on election day that more conservatives vote on non-presidential elections, and so it's extremely important for the LGBT community to rally together and to vote during non-presidential elections, because we need people in office who will vote and create legislation in our favor. So please go out and vote.
And you're right. We need to register, we need to go out, we need to let our voices be heard. A lot of people, from conversations I've had, feel as though voting it's not for them, that they're not going to make any impact whatsoever. But if you think about it, in this past election, which just happened a couple weeks ago, a lot of these U.S. Senator positions that were up for a vote, Republicans won a lot of these seats by a few hundred votes. So that's why it's very important to go out there and vote. Yeah, this last election saw a very, very small turnout of voters. I mean, the percentage was extremely low, and usually people that tend to go out and vote during non-presidential elections, they tend to be the older, more conservative crowd. We, as the younger generation, need to make it a priority to go out and vote. We need to let our voices be heard. Now Congress is completely dominated by conservatives, whom have the Republican platform. The Republican National Platform states that they are against same-sex marriage. They want bans. They want a constitutional U.S. ban on same-sex marriage. So that's the party that controls Congress now. So that's why if we would have gone out to vote, you know, the election would have been different. But.
And more individuals who are transgendered need to be registered and get out to vote, to get more transgendered acts on the books. So that's extremely important. So for the next story, a federal advisory committee issued a recommendation to the FDA to lift the ban on gay men to donate blood. And so the FDA instituted the ban in the 1980s during the height of the AIDS HIV epidemic. And the advisory committee's recommendation was that gay men should be allowed to donate blood after a year of abstaining from sex with other men. So the American Red Cross issued a statement that the ban against gay men is medically unwarranted because every 2 seconds someone in the US needs blood. And also it's shocking that in parts of Asia, gay men can't donate blood as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that the ban against gay men the ban against gay men donating blood is, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's time for that ban. It's outdated. I mean, that ban was put into place in the 80s during the height of the HIV/AIDS scare. When people were dying from the disease, you know, left and right, you know, it was a big nightmare for our community. So they came out with that law, but I think that law is now 30 years old. It's completely outdated. It's discriminatory. There's really no other word to best describe it but say it's discriminatory. I mean, and then to tell a gay man that he can only donate blood after abstaining from sex for a year? I mean, what is that? That's ridiculous. Yeah. How can you dictate someone's sexuality to them like that? It makes no sense.
The FDA put the ban in effect because of the window of time that someone who is HIV negative can become HIV positive. So if the person donates blood on a Monday, the testing that they do can only test so far back, and so that it's the testing that they use is limited to detect HIV in someone's blood system. So I think that they should use a more advanced testing system like OraQuick. OraQuick is the swab that you put in your mouth to collect DNA. OraQuick has a shorter window of time to detect HIV antibodies in the blood. So although the recommendation is a step in the right direction, more needs to be done to ensure that people who need blood can get blood, because they're missing out from getting blood from healthy gay men.
Yeah. Well, this next story I'm going to talk to you guys about is something that kind of blew my mind when I first read about it. And it takes place in your home state, Florida. The Department of Motor Vehicles in Florida has threatened to revoke the driving privileges of a married same-sex couple after they updated their driver's licenses to reflect their newly hyphenated last name. Scott and Daniel Wall D'Souza recently married in New York City, where gay marriage is legal, and they took their marriage license from New York to the DMV. Scott believes the letter was sent to the couple as retaliation after they went to local media to discuss the difficulties they had securing a legal name change. And Scott said, and I quote, "It is a don't ask, don't tell policy, and I guess we have been told here are the repercussions," end quote. So now the couple is planning on suing the state of Florida for discrimination based on their sexual orientation. So yeah, when I first read that article, I heard about that story, it was kind of interesting. It was shocking. I mean, it's just a name change, you know, and I feel pretty bad for these guys. I mean, they're excited. They just got married in New York City, and they just want to express that happiness, and to be told, and it's such a minor issue. It's just a name change. I mean, they're not trying to, you know, to force policy change in Florida. You know, Florida currently bans same-sex marriage, so they're not trying to enforce policy change. They just want to change their names on their driver's licenses. So it's pretty sad, and it's pretty disgusting that they're having to go through this, and to be told, you know, your license will be suspended after November 22nd if you guys do not change your names back to their original surnames. It's ridiculous.
It's disturbing that the DMV is singling out this one couple who they were celebrating that they were the first couple, the first same-sex couple to actually change their driver's license with their hyphenated last name. And so the DMV, I think, should retract, stating that they will suspend the driving privileges of this couple. But in other Florida news, the Human Rights Commission released a report showing the top city for LGBT people to live in, and it's Miami Beach in Florida. Miami Beach was the highest ranked because of several factors. Because of the Florida courts speaking out against the same-sex marriage ban in that state, enacting a transgender inclusive health insurance policy, also the amount of services that are available to LGBT youth, elderly, and the homeless, and also the number of openly LGBT city leaders. Florida also had six other cities on that list, which included Orlando and Jacksonville. And so that's positive news coming out of the state of Florida.
Yeah, it is. So it's pretty interesting to have one situation going on with these poor men, these poor guys just trying to change their names. No harm, no foul. They're not trying to hurt anybody. And then you hear this, which is great. I mean, it's great. I'm shocked. I thought maybe San Francisco would be #1 on that list, but you know, that's great. It's great to hear that. You know, there's plenty of cities out there where LGBT, you know, people can live their lives and be accepted. So, and the next story I want to talk about takes place in Arizona. An Arizona couple was recently denied service by a wedding planner after the owners of the business discovered the engaged couple were in fact 2 women. Crystal Allen and Kenyatta White were thrilled Arizona had joined the list of states that now allow gay marriage after the federal appeals court struck down that state's ban. So they decided to plan a wedding in December, next month. And considering they have busy schedules, they decided to hire a wedding planner. So they contacted a website called affordableweddingminister.com, sent them a letter, spoke to Crystal Allen. Crystal spoke to the owner of the website, Susan Latimer, and they confirmed everything, confirmed they were going to, what kind of package, what kind of wedding planning package they selected. And then they let Susan know that the fiance was in fact a female. So Susan replied and sent them an email that was, you know, pretty heartbreaking for them. And the letter said, and I quote, "We are very uncomfortable with same-sex marriage as it is directly against our beliefs. We would not be a very good fit," end quote. The couple, of course, was devastated, so they immediately decided to take legal action, but have since changed their minds because a Phoenix law actually allows businesses to deny service to anyone if it goes against their religious beliefs. The couple is currently searching for another wedding service that would be more than willing to plan their wedding. So my thoughts on this is, you know, if I get married, I do not want anyone working in my wedding or planning my wedding, the happiest day of my life. I do not want anybody that does not support me or does not support my lifestyle or disagrees with who I am as a human being. So, I mean, if I were to have received an email from them saying, "I don't agree with your lifestyle and, you know, you have to find somebody else. I don't agree with you. I don't agree with gay marriage." Okay, fine. Thank you for your response. And thanks for letting me know, because they have to know that if they were to force, you know, let's say a company like this to marry them or to plan their wedding, first of all, I mean, the company, the business is not going to put 110% effort into planning their wedding. If they disagree with it, they're not going to go all out to make this an amazing wedding. So, yeah, that's what I think about that. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that the couple should seek out a minister who supports same-sex marriage. But it's unfortunate that this happened to this couple. You know, one day they can't get married. The next day they can get married. They're full of joy. They're so happy, and they seek out the services of someone to officiate their wedding, and they're turned down. So that's very unfortunate. In another story, the Gay, Lesbian, and Straight Education Network conducted a nationwide survey and found that LGBT students in California are twice as likely to be harassed or assaulted at school based on their sexual orientation. And the statistics were shocking. So 69% of students reported being verbally harassed during the past school year. 29% reported being physically harassed, so pushed or shoved. 14% reported being physically assaulted, and 55% reported hearing negative comments about transgendered people. Also, that's just California. So nationwide, 74% reported verbal harassment. And so it's disturbing because young people are susceptible to harming themselves, potentially harming other people, and participating in risky behaviors because of being harassed, because of being discriminated, and because potential violence can occur toward them. And so schools need to create safe spaces for LGBT students. One positive thing that came out of the report is that if there are gay, straight alliances that are created in schools, students reported hearing less homophobic and transphobic comments, and also little things like a staff member saying that they do not approve of such comments like "that's so gay" or transphobic slurs. Those comments are heard less of. So that's something positive that can happen if more schools create GSAs in schools.
Yeah, I think GSAs are very important. I think having a gay and straight student alliance is only going to lead to more respect amongst different, walks of life, different individuals. I think it's important for kids to be exposed to people from other cultures and from other backgrounds, so that way a level of respect and equality can take hold. So yeah, my school didn't have a GSA, so I think it's very important. I know young kids these days, they tend to throw the gay word around like pretty often, like, oh, that's so gay, and oh man, that's gay, and whatever. And I think it's just ridiculous. I think that that word is just being used to now define something that's negative by young kids. I think young kids need to be exposed to other gays or to gays and lesbians, so that way they can know that, hey, we're not any more different than them. We just have a different sexual preference, but we are the same. We're all human beings. So.
There have been 2 major PSAs, one starring Wanda Sykes, one starring Hilary Duff, that talked about not using "that's so gay." So hopefully with "that's so gay" and other homophobic and transphobic slurs that are put out into the media, more people will not use those things to harass students.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sure you guys know Zachary Quinto. He's an actor that plays Spock in the latest round of Star Trek movies. Well, he was recently interviewed by Out 100 magazine, whom published some quotes that he made that didn't sit too well with the LGBT community. He said, and I quote, "I think there's a tremendous sense of complacency in the LGBT community. AIDS has lost the edge of horror it possessed when it swept through the world in the 80s. Today's generation sees it more as something to live with and something to be much less fearful of. And that comes with a sense of, dare I say, laziness," end quote. So people read that quote and got pretty upset within the LGBT community, and they let him hear about it, and he responded. So he claims to be an advocate of LGBT rights, and he didn't mean to offend anybody. And I don't think he was malicious. I don't think he had any malicious intent with these comments. But then again, when you're in the spotlight, whatever you say gets dissected a million times. So what do you think?
I was shocked when I heard about Zachary's comments. When I think of Zachary, I do not think activist. If it was coming from Wilson Cruz, if it was coming from Alex Newell of Glee or Jane Lynch, I would have a different opinion. But I think that if you make a statement that is so bold that you should be the face of that issue. And he also made a comment about PrEP, stating that PrEP is a drug that is getting big in the party scene. And I thought that that statement was coming from a uneducated place. PrEP is HIV medication like Truvada that people who are HIV negative take as a way to prevent them from developing HIV. And so it's a part of the sexual toolkit, like condoms, like mutual masturbation, that people can add to as a way to be more safe. And I think that it should be more readily available, and that gay men who are African American and Latino should be taking it to prevent the increase of HIV in those communities. And so I think that Zachary, his comments may not be malicious, but he should think twice about saying such things that can send the wrong message to people.
Yeah, I think that PrEP is something that's great for people within the Latino and Black communities, since the HIV infection rate is increasing amongst those two communities especially. So I think it's something important that people have access to this system, that they have access to this new form of safe sex. Yeah, he made a comment about that, you know, he was worried that PrEP might start to lead people to engage in even riskier sex acts. So yeah, I mean, I think that he just needs to be careful with what he says. He needs to be more careful, because he's a celebrity and whatever he says is going to get dissected by everybody. So
exactly. So, thank you for watching Culture News. That's Culture with a Q. Again, I am Victor Yates.
And I'm Antonio Garcia. And please subscribe to Culture's YouTube channel. Check us out on Facebook, as well as visit our website, our awesome LGBT website. It's culture.org, and that's culture with a Q.org.